call this regular meeting of the Maple Run Unified School District to order at 6:07. Tonight is 15 August 2018. We have 8 directors present representing 7 votes. This time I'd like to do an agenda review. Any changes to be made to the agenda by the board? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve the agenda. So moved. Thank you, Mike.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Steve. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Agenda is approved 7-0. This time I'd like to ask everybody to please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we get started, I just want to welcome our old friend, Al Corey. Thank you for being here tonight, Al.
Thank you, Mom. I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much.
The level of intelligence just went up. At this point, I would ask if there's any visitors tonight that would like to address the board. Yes, sir. Please rise, introduce yourself.
Wonderful. Good evening, board. My name is Timothy Binder. My son is a student in the district here, freshman at Bellows Free Academy, going into his sophomore year. So if I have the floor for a moment, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be in front of you, and I appreciate that this board's together to put together business for our school. We're very pleased to be in the district. What brings me here this evening is the issue of busing and transportation. I'm fully confident that this board would not pass a motion to entertain a bid on transportation that does not include provisions for the changing, adjusting needs of a future school population. And after research of the proposal that was put forth on the July 19th, 2017 meeting, it does appear that there were some provisions put in place to allow for the tweaking of schedules and routes by the board, which was good to see. Bringing me to the issue that, unfortunately, last year my wife was laid off from her job, and she was the main means of transportation to and from school for our son. And in anticipating that this was going to be a problem for the future, I brought this up to the school board back in March of the previous school year. We've yet to come to a resolution. Further, it seems that there are policies and procedures in place that transportation of students who do not come within regular routes and schedules will be considered on an individual basis on application of the parent or principal to the principal or superintendent. Therefore, I just implore the board to review the effectiveness of its current contract, as it appears it's not functioning as it might be intended, and we'll look for resolution as far as getting buses on an individual basis. Thank you.
Anybody else like to address this tonight? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this point, I will turn it over to Mr. Kimmel for the host site presentation.
Thank you. First of all, for those of you that didn't have the opportunity to join us in the other room, because I don't believe in free lunches or free dinners either, I forced you to listen to a couple of our instructors. I hope you found it informational, entertaining, and worthwhile. Stacy Tully and Ruth Cronin are both great instructors. They're just 2 of many, and they are available to go to your buildings for any number of different types of wellness classes that you might want to have before or after school for your faculty and staff. Special thanks to Tim Viens and Trish LeBlanc for putting everything together for our evening tonight, doing the cooking and doing the setup along with the rest of the staff. And also special thanks tonight to Gene Heinrich, who's kind of taking care of everything in the building while this meeting is going on, and also is responsible for most of the newsletters and that type of thing, including the newsletter that's at your tables tonight. I'd like to start by introducing Beth Hayford. Beth is in charge of all of our wellness programs. She's just going to give you a couple minutes of briefing as a compliment to the two programs that we saw earlier. And yes, there's one other very important thing. The most important person in the room tonight is Steve LaRosa. He has control of the air conditioning unit.
I just put a jacket on.
It's a lot cooler on that side of the room than it is on this side of the room, but if anybody's too cold or too hot, all kidding aside, we can adjust. What's that?
The cool people are saying.
The cool people are over there, exactly right. So, where's Beth?
Right here.
There's Beth.
Hi. Where should I stand, Mr.
Wherever
King?
you'd like.
Oh, this is perfect.
Why don't you stand
Over here?
right in that little opening right there?
Hi.
It's exactly the opposite of what I told you earlier, yes.
I'm Beth Hayford, the Wellness Coordinator here at Collins Pearly. And just out of curiosity, I'm curious, raise your hand if you've done a class here at Collins Pearly. That's not too bad, pretty good, pretty good. Okay, so I teach a number of classes here, and I run the Health and Wellness Challenges, which now typically have enrollments of 100+ people. I'm also responsible for ensuring the success of our over 200 monthly wellness classes. Wellness classes are important to the community as a whole and to the school district. They are the most popular use the district employees make of your facility. The full class list is included in one of your handouts. All Maple Run employees and their spouses have full VIP memberships, which entitles them to use everything from tennis to fitness gym, basketball, and to all our wellness classes. Most popular are the fitness gym and wellness classes. We'd estimate on an average 20% of all class and challenge participants are from Maple Run. In addition to the offerings here, we are always open to sending instructors to MRUSD campuses for specially directed programs. We've sent instructors to all 4 schools. We have provided Tai Chi, Zumba, yoga, strength classes, and boot camp. They are also available to the district office. We work with the path coordinators from the schools, and all classes are determined based on requests from that school. All classes are offered either before or after the contracted school day. I know you all know how important it is to offer your employees access to this facility and these programs. I want you to know that I am fully dedicated to helping our entire community to be as healthy as possible. Maple Run is a huge part of our community in general, and as owner of Collins Pearly, it is great that you allow so much community access. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kimmel.
Thank you all. As you all know, I opted, instead of going through a long presentation with you this evening, to send you a rather lengthy package, for which I make no apology, although I'm sure to some it seemed it was a bit overboard. The reality is that I think the exhibits are more important for you to just have on hand, because sometime along the line someone's going to ask you, for example, what did the Bessie Pearly will really say with regards to ownership of the facility, or answering some of these other questions. The meat of what I wanted to talk about tonight, however, comes in the first part of the presentation, the first part of what I sent to you. And I just want to highlight a couple of things. The first is that we are, in fact, an athletic, academic, fitness, and community center. We're not just one thing, we're a lot of things, and we serve an awful lot of people, as you well know. As the topic is, how does Collins Pearly fit into Maple Run? And as I considered that, I looked, of course, at our mission statement. And in our mission statement, it says in part that Maple Run Unified District is where inquiring minds, compassionate hearts, creative expression, healthy lives, and service to the community develop so all can learn, achieve, and succeed. So to me, the key to that is learn, achieve, and succeed. The first element being learning, and I hope that we're all aware of how important exercise can be to the learning process. There is data in the handout that I gave to you. I'm not going to offend you by reading it to you as I go along. The second element is achieve. And achievement can be many things to many people, and it can be reached by any number of different ways. But one of the key ways that people feel a sense of achievement is through extracurricular programs, whether they be sport like football or arts like band. I'm a huge proponent of the importance of these programs, frankly not so much for the programs themselves, but for the relationships that are built between our students and the coaches or the instructors or whatever they might be in the extracurricular activity. And I've provided for you some information as a reminder to how important that can be. And the third element is succeed. I truly believe that our school and our community, our school within our community, is the greatest pathway to success for our students. Unfortunate as it might be, there are too many things that challenge people outside of the school that there is no one or nothing to control or to help. What you as school board members and what our principals and our backup staff are doing for our kids by providing the types of opportunities for them to learn not only the reading, writing, arithmetic, as they say, but those things that will bring them success in life through our schools is frankly the reason why I like being a part of the school district. So in conclusion, I'd just like to remind you of our mission statement, remind you that I believe that Collins-Pearly is integral to learning, achieving, and success, and offer those of you here the opportunity, whether it be tonight or another time, to speak with me or speak as a group to the question of how Collins-Pearly can be more successful, play a greater role within the Maple Run Unified School District. And that is the extent of my presentation. Open to questions or comments, and otherwise, anytime, anywhere. Thank you.
Well, I don't think we've figured anything out tonight, but I think it's a great question to ask and to think about how all of our schools can use this facility more. It's a great, big facility.
Okay. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Moves us to item 6, which is the consent agenda. The only thing on the consent agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes from 18 July. Would anybody like to remove those from the consent agenda to discuss or modify? No? If not, if there's no objections, then these minutes will be adopted. Are there any objections? Great. These minutes are adopted. Move on to item 7, which is old business. We have a presentation from the St. Albans City School staff on a joint workshop.
So we had a PowerPoint that they were going to use for you, but I'm just going to set it up here so they can at least see it as they present to you.
Okay.
So, yeah, you guys can just introduce yourselves, right?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
All right, awesome.
Hi everyone, I'm Jamie Benoit. I work at St. Albans City School. I've been there for 8 years.
I'm Richard Barrett. I work at St. Albans City School. I've been there about 7 years.
I'm Stephen Leach. I've been working in the school district for 2 terms at this point.
I'm Robert Boudreau, Phil's facilities director, and I've been there about 4 years.
So on June 21st, we went out to keynote safety presentation, and we learned a bunch of stuff. The first thing that we did, we had a big presentation on run, hide, fight, and safety equipment.
The second thing that I took a class on with Jamie was on bloodborne pathogens and all the latest updates on some stuff we didn't know, like there's dangers in any kind of bodily fluid.
And then the classes I ended up taking were based on recycle and battery maintenance for each of the power equipment. Now, with recycle, I know that our image and our purpose for being a clean environment to the public for just what we all, excuse me. The point of recycling is such as things like black colored plastics is not recycled or treated by many facilities. Things like food particles ended up in recycle bins that get rendered to recycle as trash and cannot be treated properly. And another thing is milk cartons in a recycle bin, also not something I want in there either. That's just paper layered with plastic.
Like we said, it refreshed our knowledge on many things. There's even just like the bloodborne pathogens, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't even know. So it was good to learn that just as far as safety and ways that we should be handling, any kind of hazardous spills or anything. Not only for us, but for the staff and the children. And, so yeah, it's definitely really important. And we also got to meet a lot of the vendors there and see like all the new high-tech equipment, and we tried to sneak a few things out, what they taught us. But it was really interesting.
It was a good refresher course for stuff that we learned a while ago, but might have forgot a few things, so it's a good refresher course on everything.
The ride there and back was probably like the best experience, because even though we worked together and we know each other, even though it was like a work day, it just felt like a different environment. It wasn't like we had the quota of what we had to get done. We were all kind of able to like relax and joke around and have fun. So
As far as team building, it was good. Like I said, we communicated with each other. Everybody took different classes. So on the ride back, we all discussed about all the classes that were available. So we all learned stuff that, like the recycling class that Steve took, we didn't take, so we filled this in. The classes we took on the bloodborne pathogens or run, fight, hide, we share that with Steve. So a lot of classes we just communicated with each other on the way back.
it was really different to see a different school and see how their building was set up, and like just the differences between our facility and their facility. It was kind of eye-opening, I feel that our facility was much further ahead than what theirs was, but
It's a lot cleaner.
yeah.
I wasn't sure which way you were going.
But in a good way.
I appreciate you guys letting us go, and like I said, it might be good for maybe all the schools in our district to go next year.
I think that's it.
Yeah, we almost fit the auto scrubber, the auto guide scrubber, and the vendor got to us before we could get down the road. Certainly, they did have a lot of advanced technology, but they talked a lot about green cleaning objects or chemicals, which is a big part of our school, which ensures the safety of the children. And they also talked, some of the seminars that I attended was with the engineering groups, and we talked about the shortages in Vermont of trades. There's a tremendous, tremendous shortage. And one of the ones that I feel immediately right now is actually roofing. Some of the roofing contractor I had last week came from Albany, New York. And that is via a warranty through Firestone Roofing. That means Broad Roofing, Hawthorne, all the ones that are in Vermont are not available due to shortages of
The
staff.
city school roof brings back bad memories.
Yeah.
So, just an FYI, I'm also seeing the demand for electrical trades everywhere, so I'm seeing mechanical needs as well, and petitioners in that field as well. So, you see, and this is all the schools. One engineer indicated that they put out a bid for a replacement of a roofing on a school, and no roofing contractor showed up. So he had to go back out and rebid the whole thing. So, but it's great to meet your peers, discuss problems, discuss issues. These folks did the same thing with the people there. Roger Longran actually did a presentation for us on school safety as well. So he also did a great job in presenting to us as well. So it's kind of like a little home note from Roger in that regard. So
So where did you say this was?
Heartland. It was in Heartland, Vermont, which is White River, actually the high school in Heartland, and they were going under extensive renovations as well when we were there. So,
How many different districts or schools were there? Do you know, like a crowd, a big crowd, or?
I know there's some folks that were from New Hampshire right behind me as well. So it went out of Lebanon, so New Hampshire was one of theirs. But I would say every school district in Vermont is available to attend. But generally, I would say there must have been 25, 30 to 50 as well in that regard. So small schools, big schools.
I was just going to add, Derek took our crew down, and he's actually on the board that helps organize the event and kind of plans it out.
Yeah, my next question was, is there anyone else from our
Yeah, our
district?
whole crew. I didn't know what they were going to speak
Yeah,
to. I was
okay.
offering, hey, it would have been cool
Yeah.
if we done it.
Yeah, Derek gave us our name tags. We saw Derek at the.
So was there someone from every school in our district? Or?
We didn't know that.
You didn't, okay, you didn't know about it? Okay.
Well, when the information comes out, usually we blast it to the different schools, depending on who in the buildings received the information. But it's made available to all the schools, but not necessarily all the schools actually send individuals to the different conferences.
Is there a cost to it?
I don't remember.
Excuse me?
Is there a cost?
I think it was like
It's $30 per
$30 is very minimal cost.
and included lunch. It's
So maybe if another school knew that a crew from the other school was going, they might want to join in. So it might be worthwhile just to pass the word around that, hey, we've got a group from city school going, or anybody else want to have.
Now that we're bigger, just like with professional staff, we might be able to have some training sessions here on various areas, because we have enough people that would attend.
So did you guys get a chance to network with some of your peers from across the state and pick up any ideas, or?
No, not so much. It was pretty spread out, and in the vendor area, it was so busy that it was, all you could really do was talk to the vendors. You didn't get much of an opportunity to meet other facilities team members, but the vendors were really nice.
I ran into a few people I knew from other companies, and I ran into Rick Hayden. He works over at Town School.
In terms of recycle, and trying to keep out items that don't belong in the recycle bin, are there suggestions as to, is it a problem at the school? And how is it best addressed? Or does students and staff have to be educated on that, or is it just?
There's slip-ups, I would say, in terms of everybody come together as a community to maintain the balance of actually using the recycle. I mean, occasionally we read apple cores and recycle bin or something like that, just small stuff that.
Especially in the school, when you go into the classrooms, the kids recycle, so a lot of times you're going to the recycle bin, you might find some cross-contamination. Yeah, but it's not, I mean, it's widespread. I mean, it's in the classrooms, depends on who the teacher is and what kind of guidance they have, but sometimes we have cross-contamination in the recycle bins. But usually Robin will put an email out and it goes to a stop.
It's also kind of cost effective when we have to spend time to clean them, and clean them all out individually takes quite a while when there's like 200 of them.
Are there signs by the bins letting people know what can and can't or shouldn't be in them?
The recycle bins, some have those little images on them, so.
We have actually 3 bins. We have a compost bin, we have a recyclable bin, and we have a trash bin. And like they describe, if you cross-contaminate the recycle bin with an apple core or banana peel, it's the fruit juices that's left behind that presents an issue. Now you have to take the bin itself and clean that out. Otherwise, you have your insects in a very short period of time. So it's very important that they're kept separate in that regards. And everyone's aware of composting law that's coming to be in Vermont as well. So we're certainly at the forefront of that action as well. So we try to make use of reduction strategies, paper products, for example. We did a great job this year of reducing the volume of paper of what we've been using in the past. So that's a large part of our strategy there. So
Are plastic or paper straws used?
No.
yeah.
We haven't had straws
Straws, no
in
straws.
probably 10 years now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just a comment. When a principal is absent, sometimes no one notices. If you folks aren't there to do your work, very noticeable. So we appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you. We have a good team.
Yeah.
You do, you're kind of behind the scenes, but you make the school look great. Thank you.
And are there straws for kids that might have special needs that can't drink otherwise independently unless they had a straw? Must be.
We have not did that.
No.
But obviously, if that was a need,
That would
they
be-
would,
Oh,
right. They would deal with it, yes.
Yeah,
They would
I
make sure they have that.
Was reading an article that an old friend of mine wrote about this. You know, he cannot drink independently without a straw.
Right.
I just want to say thank you for letting us go, and it was a great experience.
Sounds like it was worthwhile. Thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Guys. Okay, that brings us to item 8, new business. 8A is a BFA clinic presentation.
I have Valerie Lippitt here with me, and she's going to introduce one of our special guests. Valerie and I have had some conversation in the spring about a clinic being actually in BFA, and Kevin and I talked about it, and we wanted Valerie to have an opportunity to come and present to you so that you can get an understanding of how we're partnering with our community and trying to ensure the health needs of all our students. So, Valerie, you introduce and make a presentation.
My name is Valerie Lipka. I'm the school nurse at the high school. I work alongside Jody Walker, and I've been there probably about 5 years now. I know some of you. It's nice to see you. Nice to see you out. This is Amy Green.
And yes, nice to meet you all. I'm the Director of Pediatrics at Northwestern Medical Center, and working with Val and your principal to partner to provide pediatric well visits for your high school students. I'm not sure if you've received the package of information, but Val and I just wanted to share with you what our plan was at a sort of 10,000-foot level, partnering with the school to have Dr. Jennifer Covino, who's one of our pediatricians in the practice, here in St. Albans, along with her nurse Lindsay Phillips, come to the school every Thursday from 8 to noon and provide care to your students, pre-scheduled appointments, students who are already patients of Northwestern Pediatrics or not. Either way, it doesn't matter, to provide visits for acute visits, for wellness visits, immunizations, help with chronic types of problems, ADHD, asthma, you name it. Dr. Covino will be fully credentialed, so everything will happen on the back end for Northwestern Medical Center in terms of the billing. We will be presenting next week at registration, orientation, for all parents and students attending that to find out more about Dr. Covino, meet and greet with her nurse, talk about the services. NMC is coming with all of our equipment, and the school's kindly provided a spot for us to be on Thursdays, and our hope that it will grow eventually into a full-day clinic. We do something very similar up at MVU, which you might be familiar with. Dr. Chip runs a program up there, so it's a very similar model, just to provide care for students during the school day on a scheduled basis, so it won't be disruptive of their normal school day, to be able to come and see a pediatrician, of course with parental consent. So that's sort of the 10,000-foot view, and Val, I don't know if you wanted to add more to that?
No, it will be confidential. It will be held out of Jody Walker's nurse's office. And so, parents will call the pediatric office ahead of time and schedule the appointments, and we can call them out of class confidentially and return them. And then their physician, if they are not a Northwest Peds patient, Dr. Covino will send a note to their physician, so they're aware. And we're really excited. If children are struggling with truancy issues, ADHD, mental health, drug she will be there to help for all those things, just as a pediatrician would in a pediatric office. So we're really excited about it. I think it's really going to be beneficial to our students and supportive to the parents. I think they're going to really appreciate that they can be seen during a school day, even if it's for a sports physical or a follow-up for nutrition and wellness, asthma. So we're just really excited about it, and I appreciate the hospital coming to us and Dr. Dirth and Mr. Mosca supporting us in this.
I'm very excited as well.
So
Is this something,
the students that don't have insurance, they'll still be covered? How will that work?
Well, we take Medicare and Medicaid, so any child whose parent, was with Medicare and Medicaid would be, serviced through the program. And then, of course, all the other insurers that are around in the area.
And then how do you, I'm thinking about confidentiality. How do you is that documented through like the hospital-based?
It is. So they will be, Dr. Covino will be coming with her own laptop, Lindsay, her nurse as well. We use an electronic medical record called MedEnt, and everything is just documented. So it's as if the child would be at our practice.
So they don't have to be pre-registered somehow in order for you to bill them their insurance?
They do need to register, and that would be done in conjunction with Val. So we don't want to disrupt a child's school day, so if someone wants to be seen, we would schedule that appointment in advance, and then Val would coordinate with us, as she mentioned, in a confidential manner, so the child could come from the classroom and be seen, and then be returned to the classroom.
So if my child has NMC insurance but doesn't go to an NMC pediatrician, do they have to pre-register ahead of time in order to be billed out?
Either way. They don't have to be an NMC patient. They could be, a patient from another practice anywhere around. It wouldn't really matter, but either way they would need to register so that we could get them into our system and properly bill.
NMC.
Correct. And all this material will be circulated next week during the registration. There's a whole flyer that gives out very detailed information for parents. It's written to the parent. I was going to read it to you, but you'll receive that talks about which numbers to call, shares information about Dr. Covino, about Lindsay, her nurse, and just kind of at a high level the types of services that she'll provide. So and I have more of this material too that I'll leave here for you this evening.
You're correct. If your child is not a patient, you would have to register with them and sign a release to be able to be treated. A consent to treat. Well, we could do that via scan, fax, whatever, if it's something immediate that you needed done. It would all be with your permission, of course, beforehand.
So a child that sees any doctor in the NMC network would already have that parental consent, and you would have access to that.
Correct.
Okay.
But there'll actually be two consents. So, if you're a parent and you want your child to be seen at the school, we're going to want your consent to be able to see your child at the school because you wouldn't be with your child. If you're a parent who they don't go to NMC Pediatrics, you go to another pediatrician or primary care physician, same sort of process would apply. You would need to register, and we would have you sign a consent, of course, so that we could treat the child. Children can't, on their own just come and, knock on Val's door and Val wouldn't just walk them down. They're definitely consent to treat and consent to release to treat is absolutely critical.
Sean, do you have a question?
Yeah, is this something that you are looking to grow through NMC? Because this is pretty valuable.
Absolutely. We're starting the program, from 8 to noon on Thursdays, and we'll see where that goes. Our goal and plan is to grow that for a full school day, and if the need is there in the community for additional services, we would certainly,
Thinking other
entertain
schools.
that. Yes.
Like moving into more schools.
To other schools as well.
A
Certainly.
little bit further out of town, up a hill.
Certainly, yeah. In the winter, right?
What is your success at MBU? How is that turned out for you?
He has been doing this for years now. It's a very successful program.
Okay.
It's
And so
heavily
did you
utilized.
start it at 4 hours and then it's just expanded to 8? Or?
He started at 8 and it's always been 8. And I think access to care, like anywhere really, is critical for him up there. And he's been very, very busy. He fills his school day and it's a very valuable program. He can only dedicate 1 day a week up there, but the other 2 days he's in the Swanton practice.
He's part of your network, right?
He is,
Okay.
yeah. So we're NMC Pediatrics in St. Albans,
Yeah.
also in Swanton and in Enosburg.
Okay. Do you have one in Enosburg?
We don't have a program like this in Enosburg, no, not yet. But we do have a practice there.
And up there, it's at the high school also. She said.
MVU is at the high school, correct? Yep.
Right, but there's younger kids at that school. There's in high school 7 through 12 up there?
He is just treating the high school students.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was our plan here as well to start.
And is there a reason for that?
It was a starting point.
So
Yep.
there's no reason if it were to grow that you couldn't roll around
There-
and maybe do a visiting?
To other
go from
schools.
school to school to school?
There's no reason other than developing the program and operationalizing it, and, you know, educating the parents and the students and everything else.
So that I understand what this is, you're basically just opening a doctor's office in the school for half a day.
Correct.
It's not urgent care, it's just appointment type thing.
Yeah, we will see acute visits, but again, only scheduled visits. So if a child comes into school and they're coughing and they come down to the nurse and they see Val, you know, we need to be scheduled, and of course, consent would need to be given.
So in terms of growth, do you ever see perhaps putting things like optometry? Is that?
These are all great questions and exciting to me because I actually oversee ophthalmology as well. So not optometry, but you know, I think as we grow the program, I think it would be good to circle back and see, you know, what additional services we could provide within the schools themselves to provide better access to care for kids.
So who pays for this?
Your insurance.
Insurance, but is that zero, is that even out?
Well, my understanding.
Your insurance, the child's parents' insurance pays for the cost of the visit.
Okay.
All the equipment and that what we're bringing NMC is that's our investment. We're coming with that. So there's absolutely no cost to the school whatsoever.
Okay.
I mean, even down to the paper.
Right.
There's like 5 reams of paper you'll see at the registration next week. That's all our cost. So it's our investment.
We're providing the space, essentially.
You're providing the space.
And some IT to be able to connect to the internet to be able to.
So it seems like a win-win.
Yeah.
The school's getting a great
Absolutely.
service,
Yep.
you're probably getting customers or patients that you wouldn't normally get, so.
And some of them will also be already our patients. It's just a, you know, an ease of service for them. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
It'll be great for continuity of care, also for follow-up visits. So say she sees someone for depression, she'll say, I'd like to see you in a month or 2 weeks, and schedule it. And so for continuity of care, I think it's going to be fantastic.
So it was very successful at Mrs. Wood. Dr. Chip started there when I was principal and throughout my superintendency. But to answer Steve's question, we also, at Mrs. Court, put in a dental clinic. So we added that.
Yeah.
And who pays for that?
Same thing with the.
Same process. I don't know who the dental
If they
plan
have
was, but
insurance.
Yeah.
It depends also on the community with regard to, is there RVI? I'm not sure what the dental, is there a dental clinic here that takes Medicaid and such? So there's some politics and different things involved with regard to dental clinics coming to the school. It's a little bit different, but that's something that could always be pursued.
There's a list of dentists who take that on the Vermont Healthcare website for each town.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I was going to suggest not.
I think
Yeah.
Grace Dickinson does too, I'm not sure.
Mhm.
So this sounds pretty good, and what are your predictions? I mean, Val, you see kids in school, they're sick. What do we do about a kid who's just completely neglected by his health care for whatever reason, parents or anything, and they don't have insurance? You know, what happens then?
You have to have parental consent before they can see it.
Right, but they'll give the consent, but they don't have insurance on their kid. I mean, that doesn't happen too much in Vermont because of Dr. Dinosaur, but.
I'm not sure what Northwest does with regard to uninsured.
Yeah, I mean, our patients that, we see Medicare and Medicaid patients and then patients with other forms of commercial insurance. So in the instance you're describing where a parent has given consent, in the process of registration, we would be asking for their insurance information. I think that there, you know, down the road, there's certainly, you know, could be opportunity for partnering potentially with NCSS or through grants or other things of that nature. You know, if this program grows to provide some service like that for families who've given the consent, they're not on Doctor's Dinosaur, as you say, and the child, you know, as you described, is neglected and needs to be seen.
I think I know the answer to this, that if Val, you have a kid you know needs to be seen, but the parents aren't giving consent and not taking him to their own doctor, that would be
So
something.
that's different than no insurance.
Yes.
No, but I'm asking that would be a catch net, the fail-safe to find somebody who needs
Right.
medical care, and you would probably involve social services.
Correct. I would treat it as if the clinic wasn't there and I was
Okay.
their nurse. I would triage them, see what the acuity of care was, and then I would contact social services. The Notch takes free patients. I'd maybe contact the health department. Meredith Plumpton works with me very closely over there. So I would do my thing and figure out how to get the patient care. It might be working with the guidance counselors and administration. We've had to do that in the past to get care. Sometimes I've even brought a patient somewhere. You know, so that's social services, DCF, that type of thing might have to be involved if it continues to be a lack of care. But those are all decisions that are made kind of individual.
Oh, I understand,
Yeah.
I understand. I like the idea of more exposure.
We also work very closely with DCF and NCSS in our practice itself in situations that are similar to this. So,
Okay, so when does this start?
our plan is October 1st. We thought let the school year get up and running. You know, we're going to be talking much more about it at orientation, and that was the plan. Was on I think October 1st is a Monday,
Correct.
I believe. Yeah.
And if it gets full really quick, you would expand it before the year's out, or?
We would certainly
Takes
have to.
off?
We'd have
certainly have to
conversation
talk about that. Yeah.
Right, because we are using the nurse's office also.
Yeah.
So we have to provide them a space. So it's a little juggling. Obviously, if there's a need for care, but they can see up to 12 to 20 patients in a day.
Right.
So.
Which is a normal patient day on a regular clinic day for a
Is
physician.
that a 4-hour?
4-hour day, or?
Well,
No,
8
from 8:30 to 2:30.
yeah.
Okay.
And usually on average, our patients, in our clinic, our physicians are seeing patients from 8:30 to 4, and it can range anywhere from 20 to 30 patients a day, depending on acuity and whether it's a well check or how many sick visits they're seeing.
Right, a sick visit's 10 minutes, maybe a physical, maybe 20, a conference, ADHD or depression, maybe 30. But they get scheduled and you fit in as many as you can. And
So on those days, if this BFA student is ill, where do they go? I know there's an office in the north building and the south building. but
they
if
would
the
still
office is
have
being
access
utilized-
to both buildings.
So they would just have to go, so one office is being utilized
It
on-
won't be completely closed. It will still be open for, acute care, but they will have a separate section where they can see their patient and behind a closed door.
I like it.
So do I.
I think this is wonderful. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely, it's our pleasure.
I
We're
would
excited.
also, I think it would be great if we could, at the end of the school year, maybe get some information on how it went.
Mhm.
Number of students served.
We're actually hoping to develop with Val's help some metrics to really track it, just around those very things.
Perfect.
How many kids we got through well, how many kids we got through acute, all of that.
I just want to say that we're very fortunate to have Val and Jody as our nurses in the partnership with folks like Amy and Dr. Provino. The kids are in good hands, and I was very pleased when Val approached me a couple of months ago, or last spring. We were able to work this out and wanted to make sure that you were fully aware of what we're doing, and if you come to orientation, you will hear their presentation. And they'll have
Dr.
a
Pavina
table.
will be there as well. She was on call this evening, so she couldn't come.
So we don't have the doctor in the house, but she should be there for orientation.
She'll do a great job. She's very excited.
We had a chance to meet, we had a great dialogue. She's a wonderful person. And,
If
so
she's
glad-
out, is there somebody who'll step in and will cover her, just like covering her on-call duties and her?
We do cover for each other. The physicians will
Okay.
cover,
So
so.
this would be
she
included
has-
in that coverage?
Yeah, she has 7 other colleagues, so,
Okay. Yeah,
it could be
okay.
any one of them. Yep.
I think it's good, I think it's great.
Yes, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
To hear about it.
I'll leave these materials here, and my business card is in here if anyone would like that, so. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that moves us to item 8B, which is the playground at Collins Pearly. our board approval is required for any agreement or long-term contracts. We are going to hear this in open session, but the identity of the people who are giving a grant is to be kept. They want to be kept anonymous at this point. I would ask the board if you have any questions or during discussion, we don't mention it. Fair enough?
Perfect.
Okay. So, Dave, you want to lead us on this?
Sure. You all have Exhibit 8B, which gives you the background information. I would like to emphasize that the pictures that you shot, that are shown, I guess the wording is, the images on the paper are not exactly as they will be on the field or something like that. Anyway, but this gives you a general idea of what the playground might look like. As Mr. Farr indicated, approval is required in accordance with the BFA, now MRUSD Collins-Pearly agreement. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but ultimately I would appreciate it if we could consider a motion something along the lines of Maple Run Board authorizes the construction, I'm sorry, authorizes the Collins-Pearly Board to accept the gift and the grant. And if and when we receive the grant, we will have the opportunity to read all the details that go with it and at that point accept or reject it. But we don't have any conditions of the grant. It's a very common grant. I don't expect there to be anything that's going to be problematic, but there will be another opportunity. If you would like us to come back to the board, to Martha or someone else to look at that, that's fine, although the grantee is not Maple Run, rather it's Collins-Pearly. The school would not qualify for this grant.
So who pays for upkeep if we did do this? I mean, the playground needs
Collins-Pearly,
upkeep.
Maple Run will be responsible for upkeep of
That'll be
it,
a
just like,
budget thing for us.
I'm sorry?
That'll be a budget thing for us, just upkeep.
Yes.
But they're covering the whole cost of the
Yes.
structures. Okay.
So just to be clear, Dave, you're asking this board to authorize the Collins-Pearly Board to make the decision on the grant?
Correct.
Right?
To make the decision on the grant. We don't
Have
have a
that motion
grant.
now, Jim?
Where's the
If we are awarded the grant, then I'm suggesting that the Collins-Pearly Board have the authority to accept that grant or reject it if they don't like the language.
How does this fit into the master plan at Collins-Pearly in terms of expansion and all? Like, where would this be?
I'll make that motion so we can
Thank you, Jeff. Can I get a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
If you go down this hall and out the door, you'll soon come to the walking path. There's a Y in the path right in front of you. There are trees on both sides of the upper part of the Y. The playground is envisioned to be in that area. And that's an area that's been long identified by Collins-Pearly Board as a potential site for a playground.
The walking path, well, which door do you mean, like the back door or the?
Yeah.
Volleyball nets are currently, or?
Steve, you walk the path often enough. You know where the relatively new benches are?
Yes.
It would be behind those.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a nice spot.
He wants to know if he's going to be able to play on it.
I do see swings, my favorite. Teeter totters would be nice too. Good one.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Let's vote. All those in favor of basically granting Collins-Pearly Board the authority to accept or reject the grant and gift for this playground, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Approved 7-0. Okay, that brings us to 8C, which is the Rotary contract. Stay with you, Dave.
Yes, similarly, 8C is that exhibit, and because the Collins-Pearly Board by agreement does not have the authority to enter a multi-year contract, and a lease being in fact a contract, The Collins Pearly Board is requesting authority to enter this 3-year contract with St. Albans Rotary Club for the continuation of their annual Home and Recreation Expo through the year 2021. And therefore, I would be requesting that you consider making a motion along the lines of the Make-Warren Board authorizes Collins Pearly Board to enter an agreement with the St. Albans Rotary Club to continue the Home and Recreation Expo through the year 2021.
Yes, second. I'm just curious, this is a lease you've just been using over and over again for years?
Yes.
When's the last time maybe somebody looked at it with legal eyes and made sure that it was still in line with laws that could have changed or something like that? And this comes from other contracts in the past as in the supervisory union that were just reused over and over again for administrator contracts, and they were never looked at. And I'm just wondering, is it worth the money? And I'm asking my colleagues here to have someone just take a peek at the contract and make sure it's all in line.
Just whether this is an argument for or against, I neither know nor care, but we do many leases like this every year.
Okay.
So your question, I'm sure, doesn't apply just to this, but it's a general question. It's a very good one. I'm very comfortable with the lease, but if you'd be more comfortable with having your council look at it, I'm absolutely fine with that. It's been a long time.
What's the timeline for this, Dave?
No big rush, because we have the authority to do it as a 1-year deal. If we get stuck, we'll just do it as a 1-year deal.
When it's presented here at our board meeting, you can rest assured that it's been discussed thoroughly at the Collins Pearly meeting before the CEO.
Yeah, I'm just talking about legal opinion on it, just make sure that the specifics are still in line with.
Since this is a lease that's worked very well, I would suggest another alternative would be to approve this, but ask me to look at leases in general for everybody in the future, if that's a concern for you.
Stuff changes. Leases stay the same and other stuff changes. That's all I'm suggesting. I'm not looking to make work or anything like that. I'm just putting it out there.
I can tell you our lease will probably go from 2 pages to 20 pages if we have legal counsel look at it. But
actually, you probably would scale it back, but I think. Okay.
Whatever the board would like, I'd be happy to comply with.
Any idea what the cost of something like that? That page or
Some of you will. I just asked the question, Dave, how confident are you?
I'm very confident in our lease.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Any other discussion?
It's just a suggestion.
Okay. I think it sounds like, well, from what I've heard, is that the board's pretty confident with the lease. I kind of like Dave's idea of somewhere along
Is
the
there a
line
motion on the
having
floor?
our
Yes.
having our leases in general.
I
It's
think
not a bad idea.
from past practice, I think that might be good.
All right, well, let's vote on this one, unless somebody else has any questions. All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? 270. Item D, early ed coordinator as signatory.
So, you want, no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
As we've been going along and deciding on who should have signatory rights, we're finding more and more, especially as the state moves in certain directions with pre-K, that our early childhood director should have rights to sign contracts that she knows best relative to early childhood. So we'd like to recommend that Melanie be put onto that list of who can sign the contract.
Okay.
All right, I'll make that motion. Start it off.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Jack. Any further discussion, any questions? All right. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 270. AD, banking resolution.
You can definitely do this one.
I can take this one. So in our ongoing process of reviewing bank accounts and financial records with our consolidation, we are trying to move all of the student activity accounts that were all set up in the individual schools. We need to get them on board with the EIN number of the Maple Run Unified School District. So the banking resolution is basically taking the student activity accounts and the BFA athletic account that we hadn't brought forward previously to this board to get the board to agree to the banking resolution that just allows us to change it from the individual schools' names with their old EIN numbers to the Maple Run Unified School District with the new EIN number and with the signing authorities of the different individuals at the schools.
May I see this board name? Do we all have to sign this?
Yes, the board members have to sign the resolution saying
Okay.
that you are authorizing this.
So these individuals can sign.
These individuals can sign the checks. These are the student activity accounts. So generally, they have the principal and the treasurer will be also a signer on all those accounts. The school principal and typically one of their admin assistants may or may not be a signer, but it's usually the admin assistant that manages those accounts with the principal signing the checks. We do have procedures set up, and we have a manual on student activities that's about this thick that I am willing to share to the schools.
So you took a number of different accounts and brought them into one, is that what's happening?
No, there's still going to be individual accounts. There's still going to be, each school will still have their own account, but it will be under the MRUSD with the EIN number of the new district.
So who can sign for which account?
Yeah, that
It will be designated when we give the information to the bank. You know, the city school one, it'll be Joan, and I don't have it in front of me. It'll be the individuals that are relative to that bank account. Let me pull it up. Let me see.
So how would you want the motion worded?
Because I don't have a copy of it.
I have a copy if you want to find it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Can't see it. Thanks. Okay. Hold it. This makes it bigger. Make it bigger. Because SATEC was, we actually caught that one and did that one with last year. We did that one already. So we're basically asking the board to authorize the resolution to, let's see.
Thank you.
This is for the People's Trust Company to hereby, to designate the authority for the individuals listed to have signing authority on the bank account, basically, on the student activity and student athletic account through the People's Trust Company.
All right, I'll make that motion that we approve that resolution.
Mike, thank you all.
So they currently all have these accounts in the schools, and what our intent is that these were all manual accounts. They were maintained on spreadsheets in the past. These accounts will all be brought into our accounting system, so they will be processing the payments through our financial software program, which means that we at central office will have oversight in those accounts, whereas currently, I mean, we get copies of the bank statement every month, we get a copy of the reconciliation every month, so we do monitor it now, but we will have more oversight once we move it into the accounting software program. And we will be doing that when we open these accounts.
Any other questions? All right, let's vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 270. All right, we have the SATEC flooring bid.
I'm ready for that.
Can you speak to that?
So you'll see it's attachment 8F, and there are 3 bids for replacing the tile flooring in our cafeteria. The bids are all for a very specific tile that will have a very hard clear coat finish, and this will extend the life of the floor and also eliminate the need for waxing, which right now we spend quite a bit of labor and material having to wax these types of floors. So this is what Derek had researched, and these are what the bid's for. And so that will save us in the long run. The hope, we do have to do some testing of the moisture levels, just so that when we put it in, it will hold properly. We have looked through them. We would be asking if the board could award it to Newton's Decorating Center. We have had very excellent success with their installation on other flooring projects. They've done a great job, and it happens to be the lowest bid.
Is this the same kind of floor you have in the bathrooms?
It's a little bit different than that. Yeah, a little bit different.
So I'm assuming that it has some sort of non-slip quality to it. I sort of envision this very hard, shiny finish, and then that sort of gets
I've seen samples of it, so I think it should be, it's like any tiled floor. If it gets wet, you still have to be careful. But,
well, and I speak from the experience of having one of my kids run down at the day school on a gym floor that had just been washed, and the kids were in there with the teacher and shouldn't have been. He had a severe injury. So I always keep that in mind. I'm assuming that, it is treated with something, or it has a roughened surface in some way.
Well, your facilities guy approved the flooring also, right?
Yeah, I would assume.
Derek?
that he
Yeah, so
he's researched it.
Yeah, okay, so
So let's put a motion.
Cafeteria, it's a high traffic area.
I'll make the motion to accept the Newton's Decorating Center bid for the St. Albans Town School floor.
Second?
All right. Any other questions?
No, but they do, I agree, they do a great job.
When will this take place? What's the time frame for this?
Well, we will probably do it, we'll do some of the testing and prep work throughout the school year, but we'll probably do it as soon as school gets out in June.
So next summer?
Yes.
Okay.
Before July 1. Yes.
Great.
You just can't go without your cafeteria.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, right, and you need a chunk of time, so.
Any other questions? Great, let's vote. All those in favor of awarding to Newton's indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 270. Does that come out of capital improvement?
No, that will come from their local
It was
local
budgeted
budget.
for.
Budgeted
It was planned as part of our project building.
How much was the budget for originally? Like, what was the estimate? Did you guys have an estimate?
I'd have to go back and look. I think it was,
About the same.
I think the initial estimate, because it was a few years ago when we put it in the plan, was lower, but then we also researched and found the better coating, which will eliminate a lot of labor and material costs, so I think it's a little bit higher than the initial kind of ideas.
Let's move on. Item 8G. G1, resignation. Resignation is attached. Ms. Burgess is resigning and asking the board to waive the separation fee. Would the administration like to make a recommendation on that?
Our recommendation is that the board consider not waiving the fee. The person has resigned. She had the opportunity to resign.
It's not a hardship, it's an opportunity. So there's no action on that.
Al,
Is there an action on it?
is there an action on this if the recommendation is not to do this?
She's resigned, do we have to accept the resignation?
I did not believe, it's already a contractual issue.
Right. Well, there's no action on the separation fee, so.
I want to know if there's any action required if we agree that we don't want to waive the separation. She's requesting that the fee be waived, and
Yes.
we will charge her the fee.
Yeah.
So we don't need to do anything?
That's right, we don't.
Yeah, okay.
All right, G2, request for unpaid leave. We have someone who is having a baby and requesting the remainder of the school year, which is longer than the FMLA allowance. What say the administration on this one?
The board has done this many times relative to allowing them this additional time. We do not believe it will be a hardship. We have somebody that can cover, and so we recommend we allow it.
So this does require board action?
Yes.
So I'll make the motion to approve it.
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions or discussion for?
Let Jim read that.
I'm sorry?
It's too bad.
Al.
To allow the unpaid leave?
Yeah.
Extend her
To extend it?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 7-0. Item H, Collins Purley proposal. Who would like to speak to it?
Well, I'll begin to give some history.
When Boyer, I'm sorry, Collins Burley's board of directors was active last night, or I should say yesterday early morning, and rejected the proposal.
Okay.
Therefore, should be a dead issue.
Respectfully, I'm not sure that it's a dead issue. I think it can still be talked about, which is what that proposal is.
If indeed this was put into place prior to the notification of the Collins Burley board and the other boards, I would say that that was out of order.
Personally, I mean, I would like to hear what it's all about. I would like to hear what it's all about. I don't think there's any action.
There's no action required. Yeah.
So as I was mentioning, the history of this is that a couple weeks ago, Dave Kimmel and the city manager, Dominic Cloud, came to me with some ideas that they wanted to research further. And you have that information in your packet. Asked my thoughts on it, and my thought is would occur most of the time when it comes to just researching, that there's never a problem researching certain issues, but that we thought it was important that it goes through the successive boards on whether they thought it was an idea to move forward with and to research. It went to the, so I okayed it, and I said I would put it on the agenda. Monday night, the city board met. Tuesday, yesterday, the Collins Purley board met and discussed it. And then obviously today, we are perhaps in the process of discussing it. It's open, the Monday session, there was a vote, right?
Yes. At the Monday City Council, there was a vote to approve further study.
And yesterday, as Al mentioned, there was a vote not to approve going any further and doing the study.
The motion, to be clear, that's very close, but after some careful going back and forth, the motion was to not consider a change in management and to not consider a study of a change in management.
So now we're here on Wednesday. And what I was going to do was give Dave the opportunity to discuss what he and Dominic talked to me about and allow you guys a chance to ask questions and see if how you feel and whether it should move forward or not.
I would like to clarify, during the discussion, the question was raised, what would happen if the Collins-Purley Board did not approve further study? And the consensus and the expectation of the Collins-Purley Board was that this board could still consider it, and that ultimately how Collins-Purley is managed is within your authority, and therefore you would have the authority to approve this even though the Collins-Purley Board did not. I also would like to mention that while the Collins-Purley Board considered this for the first time yesterday, I've kept the executive committee abreast of this from the very first conversation. The executive committee of the Collins-Purley Board followed the procedures that they had put in place for me with regards to it. And I spoke to the president of the Collins-Purley Board last night, and he did ask me if this board would still consider it, and I told him it was my expectation that you would.
So let me just say right off that I don't anticipate a vote tonight unless this board insists on it. I hate to see things on the agenda the first time and vote on it right away. If there is to be a vote to consider or not to consider, I would support doing that at a later meeting, not tonight. So, go ahead.
Thank you. I would agree. I certainly do not like to be presented with something that we expected to act on right away.
So Dave, do you want to speak to it?
Well, I think that the letter that was signed jointly by myself, Dr. Durth, and City Manager Cloud is self-explanatory. To be perfectly honest, I don't think any of us have any great expectation or feel any degree of certainty that a plan like this is going to, after study, result in there even being a recommendation. The three of us felt it was worthwhile. We think that there may be some economies of scale. We think that there may be some opportunities to get some improvements to the facility that would benefit the school and the school system and the community equally, or jointly at least. And we feel that we could reduce some of the, I hate to use the word conflicts, but some of the overlap of, overlap of programs, so that the number of programs that could be offered to the community and to the school could increase and be more efficient. And when it's all said and done, when we get done studying it, we, whoever the we is, they, when some group gets done studying this, the determination might be, don't want to make any changes at all.
Is there a cost associated with the study?
There's no cost associated with the study.
So who's doing the study?
Well, I think that that would be primarily up to this board to determine, or to determine what you want, and you would probably work jointly with either the city council or the city manager in reaching that conclusion. I would suggest that you could either rely on your administrators, that being Dr. Girth and myself, working with the administrator of the city to work on that. It might be that each of you would want a representative from your boards, and even though the Collins Pearly board voted that they felt that study was not appropriate, that we would ask them to have a representative on the committee. That's totally open.
So is the whole idea of this to replace the Collins Pearly board with the rec department? Is that, I mean, how does it change from Maple Run looking at this?
From the way you look at it?
Yeah.
I don't know yet, but in the most extreme example, Collins Pearly board would go away, and you'd sign an agreement very similar. If you take the Collins Pearly Maple Run board agreement and scratch out Collins Pearly Sports Center Inc. and put in St. Albans City or St. Albans City Rec Department, and every one of those places, there's your new agreement. I would expect that would not be the case, that there would be some probably significant differences, but that's one possibility. I think that I would hope that there'd be some manner in which the Collins Pearly board would have a continuing role. I think they're very important. I just think there's too many questions as to what the best way of operating this would be to just jump and say it's going to be a certain way.
Okay. What's the impetus for this?
I just don't see a problem with operating it the way it is now.
And that's exactly the opinion of the Collins Pearly board. They said it's not broken, let's not fix it.
Right.
And
so I'm not sure how this came about.
Well, it came about because of a couple of factors. One being the Collins Pearly board is looking at trying to improve partnerships with the rec department and with the hospital and with Rise Vermont. We're having conversations with them as well. It's been something ongoing.
It is, yes, ongoing, right?
Yeah. So this kind of came out of that. A major impetus, I would say, is the location of the proposed second hockey rink in St. Albans that at one time was proposed for Hardack. The Hardack board has come to recognize that that's not necessarily feasible and is focusing more on having the rink here. I don't personally see that the school would want to fund that rink at all. That certainly wouldn't be my recommendation. But I think that if demand for the rink can be proven, I think that this is the best place for it if it's going to be placed in the St. Albans area. And I think if that's going to happen, I think that it would be nice if the municipality would have a role in it so that some of the financial responsibility would lay with them rather than with the school system. So people involved in the rink approached me about the idea of the rink being here and about the possibility of the city having a role in the construction of the rink. Again, this is all just discussion, and that led to a little bit more of a discussion about how that whole management of that second rink would look, and if we're going to have them being responsible for it financially, then they would also perhaps want to be responsible for it management-wise, and hey, if they're going to manage that, is there an opportunity for us to look at the whole management picture? These are just possibilities. We also talked about the possibility, as you know, Collins Pearly board thinks it would be appropriate to put an artificial turf field here. It's my opinion that that artificial turf field will be used largely by the community, primarily by the school system, but largely by the community at large. And it's my opinion, therefore, that if there's an expense, and I know this board's approved it if there's no expense, but if there were to be an expense, I think the expense should be borne largely by the community. If the city had a more direct role, shall we say, in operations here, I think there's a much greater chance that we would end up with that field.
So
think.
I'm just curious, like we talk about this being regional, you know, center, community sports center, and that it's for our school district as well as the community, but the city might take financial ownership. Does that mean that city taxpayers or the town taxpayers also?
I think we're jumping way ahead to talk about that. The hope and the expectation is that any of these facilities would not require tax dollars. What I'm saying is, I don't see the school system wanting to be in a position where there's any doubt about that, I guess I would say. I do want to emphasize that when we're talking about this, and one of the reasons that the request was for this to be an executive session was that we hope to get other partners, including St. Albans Town, involved in this discussion, and we wanted to get them, make them aware of this before it became public. And I understand why executive session was deemed inappropriate for this, but we definitely want to get the town involved. The Rec Commission is comprised of residents from St. Albans City, St. Albans Town, and coincidentally Fairfield, which happens to be the same as our district. So that makes that a particularly good fit. In fact, there are more non-St. Albans City residents on the
St. Albans Recreational Committee board?
Correct.
Yeah. But they're appointed by the city council.
Yeah, I think technically by the mayor, but yeah.
They're under the auspices of the city council.
Yes.
Okay.
That would not work with the town.
Well, they do work very well on recreation, in fact.
Yeah, I know, but.
Now, what I'd like to say is, let the city do the city business, because it was written a long time ago, and let the school do the school's business. And this is all part of the school's business. I don't know why we're going outside the school business when there could be many conflicts of interest down the line. And even worse, the recreation department that operates efficiently one year may not operate that same efficiency year, at least within the present content with the college Spurley. You have the board supporting the manager and assistant manager. So my thing is, I was against it when I first read it. I am against it now. I see disaster down the road.
Anybody on this side?
I have the same kind of concerns, but I'm also intrigued by it, and so I hate to just rule it out because of those concerns. I'd rather talk about them with a group of people and figure out whether it is possible to go forward or not. And, you know, what are the benefits?
That's I'm starting to wonder, yeah, what the benefits are, and we won't know until it gets hashed out a little more.
David, are there any communities that have in place now such an arrangement?
I'm not aware of any communities who have an arrangement in place like the one we have presently. It's very unusual for a school system to have a facility like this, number one, and secondly, to operate it in a manner that has as open to the public as this one is. So the answer is no. There are, I will say, the Essex ice rink was, at least at one time, I believe, owned by the Essex Rec Department, I think that changed when the last renovation was done, and they got a lot of, they put a lot of tech center stuff in there and some other things in order to get more funding from state aid to education, which some of you may vaguely remember. But that facility was at one time run by the rec department.
My feeling is that we always want to have good relationships with the city and the rec department and using the facilities and that kind of thing. But you get into misunderstandings if you're not careful. If the school, Maple Run School Board owns the facility, which is one of the statements here, and it's kind of like owning a car and letting other people drive it, you got to be careful. So of all the things we've talked about tonight, this is one that I think needs some legal advice if we ever went down the road any further with this. My own opinion.
Right now, the school district owns it, and we do have somebody else driving it. It's the Collinsboro
Right.
Board.
So
Yeah, but I think we're more in the car now.
But that's not to say after study that you would be any less in the car.
Right.
I mean, again,
Sure.
this is just a concept that is far from being developed. And it was Dr. Durst's feeling, I think I can speak for you, and mine as well, that we didn't even want to take baby steps on this without your agreeing that we should start looking into it. And that's all we've done.
And fair enough, but you can see that there's a little bit of emotion here, and I
Yep.
think it's because of the shock factor.
Yeah,
You know, that shows up on our agenda, and it's like, what?
yeah.
So I think you're seeing a little bit of that. So that's another reason I you know, I'd like the board to just
And-
kind of chew on this for a couple of weeks.
Right, and you have a proposal here on one paragraph of one, but you're saying that's just one possibility.
Just one possibility.
So when I'm reading this before the board meeting, I'm thinking you're looking to study this proposal where everything's transferred to city.
No.
So you're saying this, you're just looking to find more answers.
Correct.
Okay. So that you can see where this would mislead.
It's always difficult when you try and put a complicated proposal into a simple letter, and I
Well, it's
apologize
just a
if...
proposal and you've got a bunch of stuff in there that you want to do, but when really the proposal is should we explore this a little bit further?
There is no proposal.
And that is the conclusion, the last paragraph of this letter, meant to, I believe, certainly in my opinion, that's what that meant to indicate to you, that all we really want to do at this point is have authority to look into the idea, explore it, get public input, and so on. I should say that the city manager would be more than happy to come and answer any questions you might have as to what his thoughts are. The feeling was that might be a little premature tonight. This is, you know, we may do the investigating and decide that there's a third party out there that we should be talking to about the agreement. I have no idea.
Maybe we should roll the rec department into Maple Run.
You could. I mean, I think you look at groups like Rise Vermont, you know, there might be more of a role for them. I'm not saying there is, there might be, there's a lot of opportunities.
Sure.
The wellness within our community is changing drastically. I think you're all very aware of all the things the hospital are doing. They're focusing much more on wellness than they are or have in the past. So this is why we're having these conversations with these different groups, to make sure that we're doing the best we can in serving the mission of Collinsboro and the mission of the school district, and that we're open to the possibility of change if that's going to improve things.
So let me ask you about the timing on this. Is timing an issue? I mean, is there some kind of a contract that's coming to a close, or that requires an action?
You know, I think I'd rather not have this festering in the community without them having the opportunity to participate in the conversation. So the sooner you can decide either we can start investigating or we can't, the better, because between now and then, there's going to be a lot of scuttlebutt, a lot of talk. There's going to be a lot of people concerned that they either are or aren't going to be invited to the table.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I guess the proposal here is really just an idea of how we might change the governance of this.
One idea.
And do you have variations of that idea, like just subcontracting it to the rec department without transferring the budget responsibility or anything like that? Because this was pretty specific right here in these last two paragraphs. What would happen, the proposal and the next steps?
That's one proposal. I see many, many, many more possibilities.
Okay.
But potentially by approving this proposal, other issues could come up during the process.
Absolutely.
That's wide open.
Okay. Think about it for a couple of weeks, we'll bring it up at the next meeting. Sound good to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you like to get a census or just decide for yourself a consensus as to whether the board would like the city manager at the next meeting or not?
Would that be helpful?
Not for me.
No,
at this
because
point.
that means you've picked a path. You haven't explored the other possibilities or iterations of what you're talking about. The city manager is coming in and saying that you're leaning towards a path that's written here on this paper. So either you're looking at a lot of different options, or you're looking at the city. And if he comes in, that kind of looks like, I think to the public too, that we're looking at doing this as it's written here.
So
I think it could, but to be clear, the first direction that we would be looking in, perhaps simultaneously with other directions, but we would clearly be looking at the relationship with the city and the city recreation department as one possibility. I don't want to indicate that that's off the table. That clearly is one of the directions we want to head in. And I hate to be too specific, but for example, they're talking about who different people would work for. I don't see it this way. I see it a different way. Where it ends up when a recommendation's made, maybe it'll be recommendation A, B, C, who knows? There's a lot of players involved. You know, I think the town is critical to this discussion. If they're very uncomfortable with this type of situation, I don't think they would be, but if they are, then I think that's a strong consideration for us.
Is there a plan to go to the town select board and ask them, or?
Yes, we were planning on going to the town select, asking for it to be put on the agenda of the next town select board meeting if it was approved to do so by this group. Frankly, I guess if you're tabling, I'd probably think it would be more appropriate to wait to talk to them until after you guys make up your mind, because I don't want them to say yes and yes or no, and then it affects.
Well, here's what you might do. You might just tell them what's up.
Well, they're going to know now. So yes, we would at least inform them about it.
I would certainly do that.
Yes.
Just tell them what's up and tell them that, you know.
Yes.
Because I can tell you boards don't like to be surprised.
Yeah.
So, okay. Go ahead.
No, I was looking at this proposal, and I don't know what the towns, I know that St. Albans City residents get residence fees, and up until a couple of months ago, Fairfield had to pay non-resident fees. Now they can pay resident fees, but Fairfield picks up that subsidy. I'm wondering if the town is the same. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
that is the same.
So they subsidize the.
Yeah.
I think the town was doing that first, and then Fairfield copied that model.
Yeah.
All right, clear that up for me. Who subsidies what?
So Fairfield, Kelly Deans came to the select board in Fairfield 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
Okay.
Up until then, Fairfield residents had to pay non-resident fees if they wanted to be in the soccer program.
Right.
They calculated how many Fairfield residents use the city rec program. The town of Fairfield subsidizes the difference. So if there's, let's say, 50 kids per year from Fairfield that use St. Albans rec programs, and the difference between the resident fee and the non-resident fee, the town of Fairfield subsidizes.
Okay. So, but isn't someone, if we were to do something like what's written here, you know, there could be a bad budget year and they might not approve that subsidy. And there might be a line item budget cut,
Yeah.
and I would think the same would be true for town, you know.
Could be, I mean, it's not a huge expense in Fairfield. This is
Yeah.
the first year, they're just trialing it.
Oh, we have less
And
kids.
it's gonna be revisited
Okay.
next year, something like that.
So we'll talk about it next meeting, and I'd also like to get Nina and Bill on this as well. So. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to other business. We've got some warrants.
Wants to approve the warrants?
Right.
Second.
Okay. Discussion on the warrants? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Warrants approved 7-0. 9B is the superintendent's report.
A few things tonight, folks. Convocation is October, I wish. Is August 24th, which is a Friday. It's a week from Friday. It'll be from 9:30 to noon, and at noon time there'll be lunch. The Abbey's putting on, right, Ron? I'd like to invite all board members who can. I know we're working people and we can't all do it, but if you'd like to come to the convocation, I think it's a cool experience. It's probably one of the few times you actually see Maple run at its best and it's at its whole, because you have all staff members there, not just teachers, but support staff, paras, custodians, you name it, they're all at the convocation. This year's going to be a very unique year because much of it is going to be student run, thanks to Joan and some other people who are putting these together. We started last year spending a lot of time talking about student voice and leadership possibilities, and working with our teachers on a toolbox of techniques that they can use to enhance that student voice and leadership techniques. We're going to show some of that off at convocation. So if you are interested, I'd appreciate it if you'd let me or Brendan know, just so we can have a place for you. You don't even have to come the whole time if you don't want. Again, it starts actually at 9 for coffee, and then 9:30 is actually the beginning of the presentations. So let us know. As I say, we're excited about it. I just love convocation anyway, because it is so neat to see everybody there. I'm not going to take the time to go through it now, but I asked Brendan to send you an attachment, a link that you most probably have at this point, that you can look at your leisure. It's the updated version of the Act 46 map, telling you where people are, and the colors have changed since the last time you've seen it fairly significantly. You'll notice when you see it that over 2/3 of students now in the state are in a single district of some sort, which is very interesting. I think it's over 50,000, 75. And so it's good information. I thought you'd be interested in that. Most of you have probably heard we have a new Secretary of Education. His name's Dan Fresh. My humble opinion is it was a very, very good choice. I know the governor talked about doing things differently and thinking outside of the box. I'm not sure he did that, but what he did do was select somebody who's a known quantity in the state of Vermont, who's been a superintendent, has been a principal, has been a college professor. I find him very easy to work with. He's very serious, he's very structured, organized, a bit of a policy wonk, and all those combined, I think Dan will be a good person. I look forward to working with him.
What did you say? A policy
Wonk? Have I taught you a new word? Good.
Good comment.
I am going to as we're talking today, as things go about for the next, for C and D, I will be passing around a new folder that I thought you'd be interested in. You could have one. And I know Kathy put a lot of work into it. Who else, Martha?
Jermaine.
And Jermaine? We've always wanted something that we could recruit with when we go out recruiting for educators. And I think we're also giving this out to faculty, or new faculty, right?
I think she's handing those out in orientation for new faculty, yes.
Yeah. So it's great. It's just a neat thing for talking about Maple Run for people to have and utilize them as a folder that they can have. The final thing I mentioned is the next 2 days, the people around this table, the administrators around this table, will all be a administrators retreat. It will be from about 15 hours of work over the next 2 days, 15 or 16. Yes, work. And basically, we'll be taking what we've done so far as a new merged district and taking it to the next level. I joke all the time that we probably, as hard as the work has been so far and challenging, that you guys even mentioned in your little survey last month, it was a little bit of low-hanging fruit, and more now we're getting to a real challenging stuff that there'll be lots of good discussion on. And that's what we're going to do over the next 2 days. Look at our 5-year plan, see where we are, where we're going, and add some good team building exercises too over the 2 days.
Where do you gotta go?
Excuse me?
Where are you going?
We're actually trying something new. We always get outside the district, and we always go somewhere like Burlington, or last year we went to Hampton and Colchester. This year we thought, let's try within our own borders, and we're doing the Hampton Invited, St. Albans, downtown.
Yeah, okay.
They have a wonderful conference room. It still gets the administrators away from their normal school building, but it helps our neighbors and build some relationships there.
Is open bar on the agenda?
Unfortunately.
No. Sorry. No.
Just checking on.
They have to buy their drinks.
Or Martha will say something. And that's it, unless you have questions.
Thanks, Kevin. Any questions? Thank you, Kevin. Okay, administrators report. Let's start with my friend Dr. Odell.
Hi. So I have been, it's all about facilities in the summer, of course, when the children aren't there. So we've placed flooring in a couple middle school rooms. We had duct tape holding it together for a while there. We made a new office out of a former closet. We've remodeled the library a little bit. You'll get to see that in September when you come for our board meeting. Got some flexible seating and a more open plan in there. Got a grant from VisBit to do some work on some safety issues that we identified during an audit. So just really getting ready for the kids to come back. I'm hoping to be in there this weekend assembling some tables in the library. So it's right up to the last minute before we get going. All hands on deck.
Thank you. Angela.
We've been doing much of the same, gearing up for the staff coming back next week. In the building, we've been doing outside projects, getting the grounds back in shape. We had some work to do after the solar project, just because there was a lot. It didn't get finalized until then we got snow, and then we didn't have a lot of rain, so we're working on that, getting the grounds. One of the big projects is we have been closing off in our A South wing and getting it all ready for our additional preschool classes. So that's been a huge project, adding the bathroom and the walls and doors and getting that all ready, because we are bringing over both of the Barlow Street preschool classes into our building. And that also meant relocating some teachers that had been in that space, so some things related to that. So we're excited, getting ready to kick off the new year, and we're not school's not ready for the kids yet. We just but we will be there, and Jason's going to add a little bit around the outside project that has been getting started this August.
Sure, I'll just go right to it. So as we mentioned before, we received a grant to have an outdoor labyrinth built, and that work will begin in the next week. And we learned 2 days ago that this is one of the first labyrinths that we built with precast materials. So it's precast concrete, and then they seal, they put the other aggregate around it. But what we learned, why it's interesting, is because in early September, there will be a number of folks who are labyrinth enthusiasts coming to see this labyrinth that Mr. Wiles is building for us. So apparently it's kind of a big deal, and we had no idea about that. So
this is the thing you walk on?
This is the thing you walk on, and there's a whole group that they kind of go all over the country. There's people who travel around the country and the world looking for different labyrinths to walk. And so just between the design and the materials being used, it's kind of like a showpiece on how you can build one that way.
So where is it located exactly?
It's going to be located back behind our playground and near the soccer fields. There's a kick wall back there right now for soccer, and there's a triangular area of land that's kind of unused, and he came and surveyed the property, so this is a really good spot. You have access to it in a number of ways, and you can kind of be just away from things, and you can walk the labyrinth.
Whose idea was this? This is cool.
MRUSD. When the grants came out, we were talking with Jessica about different things we could do, and she mentioned this, Jessica Frost, and so then we connected with the builder, and we put it together. So MRUSD's been great, and hats off to the builder, who is essentially doing this at cost of materials, just because he's moving to this area and he wants to invest in the community, and so this is kind of his way and his passion. And he said, I'm pretty much donating all the labor and everything. It's just material that the grant is going on.
And when will this be done?
It should be. It's going to be done before school. It's his timeline, so it should be done once he starts. He said a week, 10 days.
You can come visit anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever it's your
Yeah. So when it's done, we'll let everybody know.
Okay. Thanks. Joan.
So today, actually, I was working with teachers from across the district, and they pulled together the first writing CLA that we will have district-wide from K to 12. And they finished all that work today. It was supposed to take us a week, but they did it all in 3 days. And they actually did more than we planned on doing, which was pretty cool.
Did you say CLA?
Excuse me?
CLA?
Oh, Common Local Assessments for Writing. So every year, we're testing our students in narrative, informational, and argumentative or opinion writing. And so they've developed prompts, and they've organized everything so it's appropriate, and it over time grows vertically so that you can start to see growth in students and kind of push that kind of growth. It was really neat to have come together. We had a smaller group come together last December, and they put together a sample one that we used in the spring. And then this group came together with feedback from that sample one. And we went back, and one of the things I was surprised at was that they loved the rubric. Both the teachers and the students loved the simplicity of the rubric. We never get a love anything when we do something new. So that was kind of cool. And so it was their creation, and they tweaked a few things they didn't like about it, brought back feedback. It was just such a nice meeting, and it was a small group. There were only 12 of us, but it was a cross-district group of teachers who worked beautifully together, shared all kinds of ideas with one another, and pulled off the product in much less time than we had planned. So it was really a nice gathering, and a great experience for me to be able to sit there with them. I didn't have to do much of anything outside of just be there.
And just to clarify, to make sure the board understands, because we've talked about this for years, relative to curriculum, this is a continuation of what we've been trying to do. Sean really started pushing this curriculum director too, the vertical learning. So wherever you are, whether you're at SATEC, Fairfield, City, BFA, there's going to be continuous and consistent assessments right up through. So a BFA student, BFA people will know exactly what's occurring no matter where you come from. And it's exciting, and we're moving in the right direction. And we're not getting the pushback, as Joan said. They're actually enjoying the work, and they're enjoying being together, working together.
And so these assessments will start this year, this school year?
We started in the spring, and we'll now begin the school year in the fall, and the winter and the spring. We'll have a whole year done by the spring.
As you probably know, the governor came to visit last week at City School. It was a great visit. He challenged the Rise Vermont team in a kickball challenge, which is something that Rise Vermont's going to be doing a lot of, this kickball challenge. So we had some of our kids who stayed after summer school, and they joined the governor. And his people joined the Rise Vermont people, and there were a couple of teachers that stayed as well from summer school. And I'm happy to say that the governor and the kids beat the Rise Vermont teacher team 14-0. Wow. But it was a nice event. It was hot, but everybody had a great time.
How many runs did the governor score?
Actually, he kicked it and Rusty Brandon got him out. And then Rusty kicked and Governor got Rusty out. So it was an even, it was even. He ran, trust me.
Did he come dressed for the game? Or
No, none of them did.
I think so.
A couple of ladies took their heels off and started running, and they didn't care. I had a substitute, Rusty was my sub. I just cheered on the sidelines and provided water.
Let's see. Dave, anything else you want to add?
My additional information is published before you. It reviews the different programs, many of the programs we had here this summer. It was by far our busiest summer of activities yet, and a large number of projects that we have undertaken and mostly completed. Our students are back, by the way. We are in session.
I think I might be in that Legion baseball picture.
I think so.
Leanne?
When we hosted you back in June, I had reported that we had 10 students that were headed to Louisville, Kentucky for a Skills USA competition. And they returned at the top of July. There's 2 staff members that accompanied them. They were asked to give a presentation to the Rotary Club, as they gave a very generous donation to help them with their expenses. And their report was that of the 10 students, 4 of them placed very, very well out of the nation. In related technical math, we had a student that placed 14th, in carpentry, 12th, in human services, 10th, and in medical terminology, 3rd. So very impressed with that.
That's awesome.
And then specific to facilities, we have a partnership with Scott Martin, who is the facilities director at BFA. And for the last 3 years now, we've been hiring students from the Northwest Technical Center to help with moving furniture out of the classroom so that the floors in the classrooms can be cleaned. And so we've continued that collaboration, and we've had 3 students that were successful this year, made a little money, and it also helped take the heat off of all the custodians at BFA. So we'll be continuing that as we move forward.
Lisa, anything to add?
Well, I'm so cold, I hope I can talk. But,
Sorry.
let me try. So to talk about what Stacy was saying, the governor and his cabinet launched Capital for a Day that started in the summer. They started in Rutland first, and they're visiting all 14 counties, and that'll end in the fall. So they did visit Franklin County last Tuesday, and they came to the technical center to learn about the workforce development that's taking place in Franklin County. In fact, they heard that Franklin County is doing a tremendous job at leveraging and collaborating resources to develop the workforce. So we had a panel of industry members attend. We had healthcare, we had manufacturing, and then we had the trades present. And we were told maybe about 10 people from the governor's cabinet would come, but I think 35 showed in a very small hot room. But it was a really, it was hot, not cold like this. But, but it was an excellent meeting, good conversation, and there's a couple of positive action items that came out of there.
I've not had the privilege of hosting the high-level political leaders. However, we did have our breakfast this morning for our custodians, our maintenance staff, the secretaries, and folks from Collins Pearly came over today, and our IT staff. It's a nice little tradition that we've had where when everybody's gone in the summer, these are the folks that are really the backbone of the school. They work hard to get the classrooms ready, to make sure that there are no technical glitches in our computer systems, to make sure that we as the administrators are on task in getting all our correspondence and planning documents completed. So we had a nice little breakfast this morning that I thought was just a way to give a sense of appreciation to those people, because the school may be closed in the sense that the kids aren't there and the teachers aren't there, but there's a lot of staff that are working very hard to make sure we're up and running. So tip of the hat to those good people. We were a little concerned going into this summer to make sure that we had a dean of students, and we were able to recruit someone who I think will be exceptional. A young man named Cameron Colston was hired, and he'll be beginning work as our dean of students on August 20th. So he's coming up from Florida and making the transition, and will work very closely with the school administration. And I'm very pleased, very well credentialed, and I think will help us considerably in our work ahead this year. And finally, I want to mention too that we've got our orientations exactly 1 week from today. Freshmen and their families will come in. And we're looking forward to them enjoying a nice dinner and some presentations and a chance to meet with their teachers. That will begin at 4:30 if you're interested in our gym. And then that's next Wednesday. And then Thursday is our upper class orientation. We've combined 10th, 11th, and 12th grade this year. So there's only one orientation, we've got two on that day. And that begins at 5, and there'll be no dinner, but I think there'll be snacks. And we would welcome you once again to come in, get a nice look at the building, see our teachers, and meet with our families. It's always well attended, and the more research that I do about what makes kids successful, and particularly around the 8-9 transition, the more I appreciate that connection to our community and to our families. It's a really solid way of getting the kids in the right setting for starting the school year.
On Thursday nights, 5 to what?
As long as you want. I think it's 5 to 7:30.
Okay.
But we'll stay, and we'll be glad to chat and answer any questions, and we're really looking forward to having you. So,
it might be a little thing, but it's really nice to drive by the school and see those things on your big display there. You know, so I knew what the dates were. It's nice. Candy.
Thank you, Jeff. Tip of the hat for our boosters for that. And it is a great communication vehicle. When I can keep all the end stuff on it.
We tend to hog it.
Yeah, it's really good.
Did I get everybody? agenda items for next meeting, which is 5th. Well, clearly we're going to talk about the Collins Pearly. Anything else? That's at central office? Yes. Okay. Fair enough. Okay, so we're through the agenda. Before I adjourn, once again, I want to thank Mr. Corey for being here, and I want to thank Dave Kimmel for that great dinner and being such a gracious fellow. Nobody has anything else? We're good.